And I think of the absurdity of being a clown as a job, and sometimes you look at yourself in the mirror, you're like, what am I doing?
Clowning as an art form is a state of mind. It's telling the audience, I'm living through everything you're living through, but I'm failing at it, and hopefully that's funny.
Well, that's what I want to do. I just want to be an idiot in front of people.
My wife says, like, could you live like this? I was like, yeah, I could. The kids can learn some tricks.
I'm not going to try to be the wittiest person in the room. I can fall on my face and it will work every time.
I've gotten messages from some professional clowns like, how dare you do this to the craft?
I'm looking for just a nose. We don't have a nose, we have a mask, or you can have a...
Now clowns in the mainstream are the horror movies.
Clowning as we know it is gone.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Canned Air, your tribute to pop culture. I am Jeremy Colley.
And I'm Randy Hardenbrook.
And joining us today is someone who, if you live in LA, you might know as Gilly the Clown, or have seen him in commercials or television and film. But he's here today to talk about his new documentary, American Clown, which premieres at the Chinese Theater in Hollywood June 23rd, this Monday, people, so you got to get on it. And features David Howard Thornton, who was Art the Clown and Terrifier, John C. Reilly, David Arquette, Steve-O, and so many more people. We welcome actor, writer, director, musician, and clown, Guilford Adams, to the show. And we had a damn good time talking with him.
Oh, yeah.
I never had a clown on the show before. I don't know why I've never thought of it, but I guess you'll see in the conversation we're about to have, there aren't a whole lot of clowns to reach out to these days, are there?
They're not, and it was a long time coming.
That it was, and I'll let the episode explain that a bit further. And I don't want to even keep you guys from this one any longer, so I want to remind you to follow us on our socials above here. Check us out on the website listed below. And other than that, here is our conversation with Guilford Adams. Ladies and gentlemen, Guilford Adams. Guilford, thank you so much for being here.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Jeremy, Randy.
So many exciting things to talk about with you. I think this is probably the first time we've ever had a clown on the show that I can remember, and I'm very excited about that. And of course, we got to talk about the American Clown film, which is coming out this Monday, June 23rd at the Chinese Theater in Hollywood. So lots to talk about, but I got to go back and hear where you come from. What were you like as a child, and what first interested you in clowning? Because I would have to imagine that's something that probably came at a young age.
You know, yeah, I did kind of, I dove into this a little bit when I was in junior high. I got into, in the South, I grew up in Texas. In the South, they have a lot of carrying clowns and people that do magic and that sort of stuff. And I guess kind of preach the gospel, or I didn't do so much preaching, but there was an organization, or sort of the program at our church, our Methodist church, brought in a magician, and I just loved doing all the magic. And I kind of I decided, I want to be a clown. And so I made my own clown shoes with some Air Jordans and put some styrofoam on them and duct taped them up. And I kind of got my makeup already. And I looked for the pictures. I know I have them somewhere, but I can't seem to find them. But I did my first professional clown show in the 7th grade. And at like a nursing home or something. And then, when I kind of high school, I got distracted like a lot of us do, and got into sports and girls and all that sort of stuff. So I just kind of moved on from it a little bit, but then I kind of refound it in college when I kind of decided I wanted to be an actor, and kind of took a lot of my athletic prowess that I had. I was a springboard diver in high school and college. So when I kind of started segging out of that, I was like, I was athletic. And so I skipped all the theater stuff in high school. And, like we do when we get something new, we're like, if you don't have the background in musicals, which I did not, I kind of led with my best foot. And I was like, oh, I'm really athletic. I could do flips and tumble and stuff. And so that kind of pushed me into a lot of physicality as an actor. And that's kind of how I got back into clowning. When I was in my BFA program, I was just really soaking up the Marx Brothers and Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd and And the clowns that did it at the time, the Bill Irwin, that he was a master clown, and just kind of, it's just, I couldn't get enough of it, and that's kind of where it took off, really.
Wow. So, I see that you have a lot of acting credits on IMDb, and I was assuming that those were just all in clown garb. Would I be mistaken, or are some of those you're not?
You are mistaken. Yeah, some of them are not in clown garb. There,
Okay.
a lot of them are. Over the years, because I've really kind of become specific, and LA, there's clowns here, but to be kind of really good at it, there's just a handful of us, and so it became kind of a special skill as an actor, like all of a sudden, oh, he's also a clown, and almost kind of a calling card of sorts, like it would be like speaking Russian or something, that would be on your special skill. So the fact I was a clown and I had done that a lot, I think it just came up. And honestly, and I'll go a step further and say a lot of clowns are they're not actors, I'll say, like some of them are and some of them aren't. And so, reading the moment in a correct way that actors often do is almost essential to booking some clown jobs, because you got to know when to kind of shut up, and just like let the makeup do the work. And then you got to know when to kind of, go total bozo. Yeah.
And I'm curious, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know anything about clowning professionally, but clown school, is that actually something like you have to do to be considered like a legit clown, or is it just more of like training, or how does that work?
No, I'm glad you asked that. There was a clown school. In fact, I auditioned for it in 1997, and it had been around probably for 30 years before that Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey put on. And that was in Sarasota. And a bunch of my friends at the time, including a lot of the people in the doc that we interviewed, actually went to that 1997 clown school. I didn't get in at the time. And I have honestly spent 30 years feeling jilted and like kind of like, oh,
sorry to bring it up.
No. It's like one of these, like, I think for a long time I felt like, because I auditioned, but I did not do the application. So like it was just classic me. Like it was like, it's like going to class, but not doing any of the work. So, I didn't get in. And then as I've interviewed all these other clowns, they're like, oh dude, I spent 2 weeks on that they all did the form. And it was like very comprehensive. And so I didn't do it. So I think for years I kind of felt like a victim of not being chosen, but like I didn't really follow through. That was just a reality. And I spent a long time being like, oh, they didn't want me. It's like, you didn't do the application. You missed the major thing to do. Like, sure, you auditioned. And he told me when I auditioned, Dick Monday, it was like, great. Hey, yeah, you seem do the application. So like it was all laid out in front of me. I just didn't do it, and then felt like I was spurned afterwards. So, I've come to terms with that a little bit better for the past 25, 30 years. For a long time, I felt like, they didn't accept me. It's like, well, you didn't really do it either, But in any case, I found these clowns. So there is a clown school. There's others that's gone now. But there is a Del Arte school that's in Northern California. There's a lot of commedia mask work. And then there's Lecoq, which is like in France. And it's kind of the sort of like the European clown school. But something unique happened probably in the 80s and the 90s. A lot of this, I think, a lot of BFA programs and master's programs really started integrating a lot of this sort of like clown knowledge and whatever else, or a clowning class into a lot of the sort of programs that we see all across America. So it really kind of started kind of moving into the programs a little bit more than just one specific school. Like you'd have Chekhov, Shakespeare, clowning, maybe Ibsen, or you'd have, so that kind of worked its way into the curriculum a lot. But that was, that was a little bit of why I wanted to make the movie, is that there's no certification.
Okay.
A clown. Like you don't get a degree in this. It's a funny bit, and people always say, hey, go to school for that. But it's like, there's no certification,
Gotcha.
Wow.
Okay. That's what I was curious about. Like how they have like SAG-AFTRA and stuff like that. If there was like an official.
Well, there's an artist and variety performers union. I think it's AC or AGVA. I don't know
Okay.
what it stands for, but AGVA. And that they like opera people, supernumeraries, people that do that sort of stuff could be protected under that union.
Gotcha. Okay.
You imagine though if there was how hilarious that strike would be. Just a bunch of clowns picketing.
Yeah, I would love it, man. I would love it.
So at what point then did you come up with Gilly the clown, your clown persona?
Yeah, I did for a long time. I was doing kids parties, and I started with a company called Clowns for Hire, and this was like so long ago. It was honestly like during the Yellow Pages years, because the internet was not around. So I was like a clown for hire, and then I was just like, oh, what if there's more? And I was like, so okay, now I'm a clowns for hire, even though it doesn't sound grammatically correct. And then I there was one day where somebody had Clowns for Hire. I would always check it. I couldn't get the domain. This is the very beginning of these domain names, 2002 or something, 2003. We had no idea what this gold rush would be with domain names. And all of a sudden, clownsforhire.com was taken, and it was a database of clowns. And so I called the guy and I said, hey, how do I get on your database? Because you're Clowns for Hires, and that's my company name, Clown for Hire. And he's like, well, you can't. And I was like, well, that's my company name. He's like, well, I don't know what to say. Like, you're in Los Angeles, right? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, why don't you be like Los Angeles Clown or something? You're not going to go to Riverside to do a party. And he kind of knew the area. And I was like, no, probably not. Or Orange. He's like, no. So yeah, be Los Angeles Clown. And I could not hang up the phone quick enough. I checked the domain. It wasn't taken. And I was like, oh, all right. LosAngelesClown.com, that just, it's all the keywords are in there in the domain. And that was kind of the beginning of that. So I did kids parties, but then there was a guy that I still talk to that's in the documentary. This guy Laffy Pants. He had great pictures, and it was like an Auguste clown, and it was kind of flesh tones, but great. And he still has the same face and stuff. And I was like, hey. And somebody called me because I was Los Angeles Clown, and they were from IHOP or somebody advertiser that was dealing with an IHOP commercial. And I was a commercial actor at this time, but I didn't have great photos other than like a kid's clown. And I could tell they wanted kind of a bigger clown. So they called me, and they're like, do you have any pictures? I was like, oh, not really, but I do know a really good clown. His name is Laffy Pants, and I can send you his picture. Anyway, long story short, he made like $30,000 from sending him a picture. They used him in the commercial, everything. Wow. And it was like, and he was like, hey man, thanks for that spot, dude. I was totally appreciate that. And I thought,
Ringling Brothers School all over again.
Yeah. No, it was just like, I need pictures. And so that was the beginning of just like having the materials that you need, of kind of like, if people call and ask, you want to have something, right? And so that was kind of the beginning of like, okay, well, what does Gilly look like? What's this picture going to be? And it was around that time I was working with the owners, operators of McDonald's, working as an assistant to Ronald McDonald. So my face has some similarities. I went with a white face for Gilly, and it had some similarities to kind of Ronald, but different enough where it didn't feel like it was a mashup. But it was a white face clown, which is what Ronald is, as opposed to an Auguste clown, which is, I think, Lou Jacobs was an Auguste clown. A lot of Ringling clowns, it's got the flesh tones in it. So that was kind of the beginning of like, kind of starting Gilly. And Gilly's really whatever I'm wearing, so Gilly's got different makeup. He can be whiteface, he can be Auguste, he can be a kid's clown, he can be me outside sometimes.
That's what I was curious about, because I would assume like, when a person comes up with their clown's persona, I imagine it's a very personal thing, like there's probably rules in place to, putting together a clown. Would I be mistaken, or would that be accurate?
No, you're correct. But again, because there's no sort of, some people take the rules very seriously, and some people are a little bit more cavalier with it. So, I think the old school thought would be absolutely, your face doesn't change, and you might even have it trademarked or whatever else. You don't put a makeup in front of people. People don't see you eat in face. They don't see you smoke, drink, or any of that sort of stuff. There's kind of like a guidelines for being in face, but then people break that. I mean, people break that all the time. So it's like, what integrity do you bring to your brand, and what do you want to do?
I see. Now, you just said something that's very intriguing to me because you just said working as an assistant with Ronald McDonald. And I had read online that you had portrayed Ronald McDonald throughout Southern California region. Is there any truth to that, or what was the story?
Both are correct. Both are correct. We are assistants to Ronald because there is only one Ronald McDonald. So when the easiest way to say it. Now, that one Ronald McDonald could be in a variety of places across America simultaneously. It's a wonder that he can do that.
But it's like Santa Claus, kind of.
Yeah. It's very similar to Santa. And so when you're not in face, I'll say, then you're just an assistant to Ronald. And so there was an acronym that we all would use. And to this day, we call them TOMS, which is a top of the market. And that's the sort of nomenclature that we would use to each other, that we're all TOMS and that we're all in service to Ronald McDonald. And at the time, which is kind of where this whole journey with American Clown takes off, is at the time there was about 100 of us in the U.S. Divided up into states that would work as an assistant to Ronald, and we were employed by usually any owner operators within our sort of district or in our region. They had a bit of a slush fund that they would pay towards that, and that was the way a lot of these clowns operated for 30, 40 years.
That's incredible. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's worthy of its own documentary. I don't know legally, rights wise, or how that could kind of take off, but it's a unique story in itself.
I'd love to hear it because I'm a huge McDonald's fan. Was what I was about to say. I always loved Ronald, especially those commercials in the '90s. Oh my God! I mean, even to this day, when I like to look at old commercial blocks online from the '90s and early 2000s and whatnot, and it just still warms your heart.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I know there's people who don't like Ronald, but I am definitely not one of them. I love Ronald.
I did too. I always did. I think there was a lot of clowns when that happened, and it really took off in 2016, 2017, when we started seeing fellow Toms. They would lose their market. They would get fired. And so we had a Facebook group. We still do probably. But then people would lament like, hey, I've just been canned. And it'd be like in Mississippi or whatever. And you're like, well, I guess they can't afford to keep them anymore and times are changing. And there was 4 to 6 of us out here in Southern California. And so I think for a long time, we were just kind of watching like, but we're safe. And then we got the news towards the end of the year. It was like, really? And, honestly, I shouldn't have been as surprised as I was. But and now it just feels like when I look at it now, or even when I enter McDonald's now, it's like, oh yeah, this wouldn't exist. It's a different it's just a different restaurant now.
It's depressing now, is what it is.
Yeah,
it's just a different. It's I don't know what to say about it. It's automated. It's not it's not personable like it used to be.
Yeah, it was so cool going in when you were a kid. Not only, the obvious things like the play place and, the birthday parties, but, the great big colorful displays with the toys they had. I remember in the 90s, they would always have plushes available, or for adults, so you can get Field of Dreams on VHS for $4.99 if you buy this value meal. It was just, you never knew what to expect. It was so unconventional and awesome. And there's just nothing like that.
It was an
anymore.
Experience back then, and now it's just...
That's a perfect way to put it.
You're in and out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very transactional. Yeah, there was something, and it was interesting being a part of that program. I was a 10-year Tom, so I did it for 10 years. Plenty of guys did it for 20, 30, 40, 50 even. Some of the real old guard would be in it for a while, and some of these guys, that was their whole professional career. So for me, I was always lucky because I was an actor as well, and so it kind of was like a great story, and I got to be a part of this, But for a lot of guys, it was everything, and so when they were out of a job, and I've looked at a lot of them. A lot of them have grown beards. A lot of the Toms are now Santas. That's your last iconic character. You're like, I'm doing this guy now. And so, but I will say this about Ronald. Most people don't know this, especially in Southern California, when it was really clicking along. I mean, Ronald would do shows in libraries and school cafeterias and just like everything. And I think people, he's a big corporate heel and he's, selling crappy food to kids and stuff. There's like, but I mean, there was a time that absolutely. And was he a corporate shill? And sure. But there was also additional really magical things that came along with that. Yeah. And one of the things were these performances that Ron would do for underserved areas in Los Angeles. And these kids would be sitting watching a show that Ronald's doing, whether it's his book time or his anti-bullying show or whatever. And they've never seen a show before. Like, this is their first theatrical experience that they've ever had. So it was really unique, for a lot of reasons. And for them just to have gotten rid of that without so much as like a thank you was just, it was surprising. It was really surprising. But like all these corporate decisions, it was probably 10 years down the pipeline. And then, the Toms were like the last to know, like, okay, we've decided this. And then, hey, you guys are done, and that's exactly what happened. They kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater on that.
Jeez.
So there are no Ronalds out there anymore? Like, has it completely been nixed? Do you know?
Dave, the program used to be the Field Ronald McDonald program, and that program has ceases to exist. Now I think they call it the Central Ronald McDonald program. And as memory serves, and as I think there's 4 people that work closely with Ronald now. And so I think they're just, I don't know if they're under salary or there was, if they're just kind of farmed out, like they're gig workers. I really don't know, but they were all relatively new within the program when the whole thing kind of collapsed and fell, and they retained 4 kind of young bloods.
Sure. It's so sad. I'm not going to emphasize again how much I love McDonald's and Ronald, and it's not even the food I particularly love. It's just like Randy was saying, the experience that we don't have anymore, the nostalgia of it, I guess. But
yeah.
We lived in a particularly wonderful time with McDonald Land, and it was just such a unique time. I mean, in this house, I have McDonald Land plates, and I got Ronald stuff all over. This is my clown house, so I've got Ronald stuff and costumes and Ronald
awesome
there, and I got a Ronald. You can see him back there. Ronald right there.
Oh, that's awesome.
I got everything. I'm heavy. The thing about people that were Toms is like they love the character. I mean, they absolutely loved the character. Probably more so than I did. I love Ronald, but I didn't. I don't enjoy being somebody else. I like being me. That's why I'm Gilly. Sure. But some of the guys, you're like a celebrity. You're like a Beatle. You walk in and like everyone knows you, and you're like, oh my god. You get it's probably. It's intoxicating.
It would have to be, right? I mean, to play one of the most famous, if not the most famous clown in the world, and just to walk into that reception over and over. How cool, man. I'm jealous. I've never had a particular interest in clowning, but if that opportunity came to my front door, boy, I would take it.
It was hard. It was hard to say no. When I got the call for that, my buddy Laffy Pants and I both got kind of the call at the same time. And it was, that was like, hey, we're looking for a clown and it's got full-time benefits and health and pension, it's like, wait, what? And I had to well, what clown would that be? I wonder. There's only one that came up, okay.
So,
and they wouldn't tell us,
Of course.
So I've got to know, when you're doing clown stuff, I mean, a lot of that is improv and kind of you bringing your own personality into it. When you're hired as an actor to do a Ronald McDonald or, a specific clown, are you able to have some latitude with that? Or is it you have to go by the script, by the book? There's prompts you have to read, kind of all that?
Oh well, as Ronald, there's definitely a character guy. I mean, you're learning how to draw within the lines of who that character is, and that's and as Gilly, there's a lot more latitude. I'm my own boss. I mean, obviously, I don't want to get fired or a bad review or whatever else, but I have a lot of latitude depending on like who I am and where I am, and sometimes. Especially learning or working with Ronald early on, you make mistakes and stuff, and you're like, oh, I shouldn't do that. Like he's probably, I kind of, it's almost a blueprint for a lot of like how I feel about my own clown, right? Like that there's like clowns. To me, I don't like to eat in face. I don't like to eat if I'm, made up. I mean, obviously, if I'm at like a 35-year-old party and 30, like a birthday party for a 35-year-old, like, hey man, you want to do a shot? Or there's times that I would have done that.
Sure,
Ronald would never have done that. And Ronald is very asexual, and so I've tried to keep, a little bit. I've tried to maintain a lot of that because I think it just adds to kind of the mystery and the wonder of a clown. I think,
Right. This is really a bucket list thing for our show. To have some Ronald on the show is just, I'm beside myself because it came clear out of left field. Years ago when we started, I was actively trying to look up people who have portrayed him, and I didn't get an answer back from anyone. So yes, but I had also read that you're if you have been chosen to play Ronald, you're not allowed to say necessarily that you are Ronald.
People are very, very strict about it, and I guess I don't know. I'm again, as an assistant to Ronald for 10 years, I'm not trying to. But the program doesn't exist anymore. Right. It's a part of. I mean, the cat's out of the bag, and and it was also that secrecy for a lot of these guys that it was like that. That led them all to be pushed off the cliff. Because no one said anything. No one's like, hey, by the way, this is bullshit. They were just kind of like, oh, don't say anything. Let's not risk it. As people are just like stampeding them off the hill, Yeah. So I think it's the same secrecy and tip of the hat to these guys. They really maintain that. I had a friend who for 40 years didn't tell anybody. I think he's finally telling someone, a little bit here and there. But I mean, the whole time his whole professional career, his like friends just thought he did something else. I don't know how you keep a secret for 40 years. Like one drunken night, you don't tell somebody. Like it was just amazing. 40 years, he told no one. I mean, that's
incredible. That's a
heavy
secret.
Weight.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a lot of weight.
Accidentally walks into the bathroom and the wig's hanging on the hook. Like, are you not telling us something, Bill?
Yeah, it's wild, man. It's wild.
Well, this is incredible. So it's quite an honor, man. Truly.
But I'm one of many. I'm one of many. I stand on the shoulders of just a lot of wonderful performers that have done this role.
Yeah, but you're one of many who all make one. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And as a kid, I mean, that was. I remember seeing Ronald at McDonald's at a birthday party, and how just oh my God, I was excited. Just thinking about it now makes me excited. But anyway, I'm sorry. I don't mean to make this Ronald centric this whole episode, but you just got me excited, Gilford.
When I'm excited that you're excited. I didn't quite see the value in kind of getting rid of him. And at the time, I remember there was a portion. Close this real quick. At the time, there was a portion of because when things were really getting bad, it was the It reboot was coming, and so a lot of people. I remember we had this big conference call, and all the Toms were on the phone, and it was like, we got to lay low, and there's a scary clown, and I remember thinking at the time, listen, if this kills Ronald, then like Ronald deserves to die. Like if this promotion for a movie is going to sink this beloved character who's like in the top 5 as far as people you'd recognize. I think it was like they did a poll once. It was, I'm not trying to compare him to, but it's just like Jesus, Santa, Ronald. Like there's just these iconic things that you're like, okay, well that's who that is,
Right. Like
So
up there
it's-
with Mickey Mouse and stuff like that. Like
Yeah, exactly. Mickey was there too. Like these are just around the world. People know exactly who that is. And so I thought, like, why would you get rid of that? But it must have just been a liability for them, at some point. And I when we have these things, they were like Tom Cons, and we would spend time with other Ronalds. And I remember, or other people that portrayed him. And I remember thinking, and no disrespect to anyone in particular, but depending on what market you were in, how you dealt with the character, and the fact that everybody had a phone, it just felt like there could be some instances where like it optics look bad, or somebody takes a video, or I was a little surprised that like just the shit didn't hit the fan with something, because it just felt like, ugh, that could be bad, or it's just because back when people started that program, you would have somebody would have to have a camera to take a picture, and then towards the end of the program, like everybody has a phone with a camera on it, so like you couldn't go anywhere without. So let me take a picture. Let me take a picture. Let me get that phone. Hold that phone. It was just picture central. It's all you did. You couldn't even go to the next location because people want to take pictures all the time, and that wasn't the way it was 20 years ago. Like Ronald could move around and stuff, and it's just a different time. But there's also liability with that, right? People are taking videos, and Ronald's talking to a kid, or it could look bad, and so maybe McDonald's was like, "This is too dangerous at this point right now. We got to let this go." So I don't know.
That's a damn good point. That's something I never thought of. But also in like the late maybe like 2015, 16, something like that, like where all these idiots were dressing up like clowns and like trying to menace the general public for no apparent reason other than just to be assholes. And that's what, like, to me, that's what seemed like was the final nail in the coffin for Ronald. He seemed to disappear pretty damn quick after that whole movement was happening, which I still don't understand.
I think you're right. I think, and I've talked a bit about that, and I'm happy to talk a little bit further because I'm still trying to piece together how that happened. That was very much what happened. It was like these scary clown sightings coming from, really started off in the UK. I think it was like Southampton, and then it was in South Carolina, and then other spottings, and all of a sudden, and I remember clear as day, like watching the news, like scary clowns are coming to Southern California. Like it was like, wait, what? What is that? Like, who just says that? And then they would call, my company, as I said earlier, is a Los Angeles Clown. So they would call me to find out, like, let's get your opinion on this. And is this taking away business? Like, well, it's not good. And they're like, well, why don't you come to our station and get in clown and tell us how like it's screwing you over? It's like, wait, so the company that started the news organization that said, hey, scary clowns are coming to go. Now you want me to get in clown to come to you to lament how like so the person who started this rumor is now like, I just like, what's going on here? No, I'm not going to do that.
Good for you. Man. Unpaid, good for you.
Well, I just didn't want to feed into the fire, but it was an interesting. It was just right before the 2016 election, and it was this interesting confluence of events that, like, it's not news, it's entertainment. Exactly. But all these companies are now owned by entertainment conglomerates, and so it's this weird bending of like it was something that was clickbait, but then it got a lot of views, and so people are just making it news now. Like it was really confusing, but now it's almost like a litmus test for everything now, because now when I see stuff like that, I'm like, oh yeah, it's not news, but like it's entertainment, but you can't distinguish now which one is which.
Yeah.
Like
it's scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
because they're manufactured. It's manufactured news and entertainment. So it's almost like it fits almost on like a schedule. Okay, bring in the clowns. Let's do that. We're running the clown thing again. It's that time. And it just feels like, okay, so we're being played a little bit,
Yeah.
Well, it also seems like there's been such an influx of like the evil clown like genre. Like you've got like the Terrifier, the It remakes, games like Five Nights at Freddy's, like all this stuff that kind of facilitates that too.
Well, and it sells, right? And it's like it's and for a lot of people, they love the scary clown trope, and I'm it's great, awesome. I mean, that's not necessarily my bag, but like I don't, I'm okay. But then because you have that stuff, and you don't have the Ronalds out there or the Bozos. I mean, David's brought it back. David Arquette, he's trying to do some more with Bozo, but you don't have them in Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus anymore. So you don't have any positive clown role models anymore.
Yeah.
You have the negative ones. So all kids assume all clowns are scary. That's all they see.
That's a strange thing, isn't it? Like the positive image clown gets nixed, but let's bring in these clowns that love killing kids and luring kids into the sewer and whatnot. I don't know. I miss Ronald.
It is a little weird. It is a little weird that we that I don't know, you know, and I think part of this is our culture right now is that we can't believe something can just be good. You know, like we have to like focus on the negative of it, you know, like anyone that, because we've been proven time again, and like the salaciousness of the story, whether it's Bill Cosby or whatever, like, oh no, there's something bad about that guy, or Pee Wee Herman, you know, oh no, that feels bad. No one's that nice, you know. Like if Fred Rogers was alive right now, I'd be like, it's just no one's that nice to kids. Come on, Fred.
What's going on with you?
You think that'll ever? You think that pendulum will ever swing back?
I do, but I think it'll just be we'll lose market share and we'll never gain back that market share that we had. But I think there are people that are sending positive portrayals. Puddles is doing it. Puddles, the Bitty Clown, you know, he's got a great thing, and I think he's wonderful, and I love him. I had his friend Mike, who's the manager of Puddles. I had him and the documentary, and you know, I think we will. You know, if I do like a 30-year-old birthday party at some bar in Silver Lake or whatever, and they love clowns, like they love them, and they're like, I love clowns. Like I don't believe, I don't, you know, I don't have this hype. There's not like this sort of like this hyper sensitive or this, you know, I think disliking clowns is community driven. I think that it helps bond people bond over the hate, and there's no one to refute that. No one's going to take time to be like, oh man, hey, lay off the clowns, you know. People are just like, they use them as a punching bag. So but I don't think the younger generation does it as much. Like they're like, oh, clowns are awesome, I love clowns.
Right Wow. All right, man, we got to talk about this film. I mean, I'm ready to talk about this film. Again, at the Chinese Theater in Hollywood this Monday, June 23rd, people. I wish we lived closer because I would freaking be there. It looks like online on IMDb that this is your writing / directorial debut. Would that be accurate?
That is accurate. I started this story really because I had I was the only one that was going to do it. You know, it felt like I've got a unique vision. I also, at the time, I was, I was working with McDonald's, but I was also doing my own kid stuff and clown stuff, and I never shuttered my business. But I was also an actor, and so it kind of had like a unique way in. You know, like I wasn't a full-time; I was a part-time guy. And then eventually towards the end, I did like 3 or 4 days. I was under contract, but only did 3 or 4 days, a week, and a lot of days we wouldn't work. So I knew the lore and I was steeped in the lore, but I kind of had like one foot out a little bit, and kind of always felt a little bit like, so when it kind of broke apart, I think a lot of other guys, maybe they were hoping to be pulled back in, or like this would be temporary or whatever. And since I was like, well, I'm not getting everything from this anyway, I'm going to at least I'm going to try to cover the story as well as I can, because I think it's an interesting story. And once it dies, it's never coming back. And so we started filming all the last shows that I did. And I thought like, I don't know how I'm going to use this footage, or if I will even use it. And there's a little bit of it that's in the doc.
You're referring to the Ronald footage?
Yeah, the Ronald footage, and I was very careful not to, there's Ronald's in it, but then I'm also in it separate from any sort of thing. And so there's really not much at all, because that was 2017 and I've been filming ever since. So, wow. And it was a lot of other things started happening. at that time, it was, and that was before the pandemic and everything. And it was like, it wasn't just me that was affected. It was like everyone's program was shutting down. And I just thought like, well, let's find out what's going on. Let's talk about this. And, so when we did the doc, I felt like I was the reluctant director. Like I just didn't, no one else was going to do it. So I just kept doing it. And to this day, if somebody told me, I was always hoping somebody bigger would come along, like, hey man, I'm a director, is what I do. I love your story. Let me take it and I'll get it to the next level. But no one really ever came to say that. So I just kind of stayed with director. I did bring the editor up to co-director with me. What he did with the film and all the footage that I had was like, it would be like, I felt like a real asshole just to call myself the director at that point, because he made a film. All the stuff that I had, I was like, okay, I will share this with you, and I feel like you've made this a movie, and it just feels better because it doesn't, everything feels collaborative on this thing.
And you're referring to, I can't remember his full name. Is it Scott?
Casey. Scott he moved to a producer. He just got too busy, and that was the idea. I think we wanted to always have kind of, I don't like the optics of me being the only director on it. Then I'm in it a little bit. It just felt a little,
I understand.
So having somebody else that was also passionate about it and that really could pour through the footage like I could, and that could be objective about me and my involvement, I thought was beneficial. And so Casey Pinkston was that person, and he was great. He's just been like, he's been wonderful. I've talked to him, and I feel like I know him really well, but I've actually never even met him in person because he's in Texas.
Well, I mean, that's the creative world we live in now, right? People miles away are recording music, making comics, movies, anything you can think of, and have never met. So it's a crazy world we live in.
It is a little crazy, man. It is a little crazy.
I'm excited though to once again see this, not only to get educated on the American clown, but all the people that are in this film, David Howard Thornton, John C. Reilly, David Arquette, which you mentioned a little bit ago, and Steve-O, which I believe he attended clown school. Maybe he was a clown for a while with the circus. I'm not sure. And like you had mentioned, David Arquette owns the rights to Bozo the Clown, which blows my mind. But I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about working with these gentlemen and, just what their involvement is with the film.
Sure. Steve-O was a friend of a friend. I didn't get in that year and in 97, but my friend Matt Walker did, my friend Matt Morgan did, my friend Tina Groff did. And so I met them probably in the early 2000s, and they become fast friends. We worked together all the time, and they knew Steve-O, and I knew they knew Steve-O. And so when I was doing this documentary, I was like, I really like to talk to Steve-O, because I think Jackass to me is like, is another chapter in clowning. I mean, I think it follows in the footsteps of the Three Stooges, instead of like the boinks and the hits and stuff, it's like paper cuts and snorting wasabi and all that, kind of like it's the new version of clowning, complete idiot stuff. And so I really wanted to talk to him, and he was kind of our first big interview, like with a celebrity, and he was so easy, like he was accessible and sweet. And then when I went to interview him, it was before the pandemic hit. He was like, we went to his house, and it was such a professional, and he'd been in some big yarn, and then he'd kind of have a flub or mess up, like, let me take that again. And he's got started it again and do it, kind of tighten it up. And he just was such a pro. And I'm just so thankful for his involvement. Because I think, as anyone would tell you that's done these docs, it starts to open the doors for other people. Because I don't know if whether it's just a confidence thing or like, well, Steve-O's in it. And then, well, Steve-O's in it, maybe we can get so-and-so in it. And it just becomes, okay, now these two guys are in it, maybe we can get so-and-so in it. And so it felt like that's what started happening. David Arquette, I did a movie with him in 2016. It was called Saving Flora, and he was like the owner of a circus, and I was one of the clowns in the circus. So we befriended each other there. And then later on, I found that he got the Bozo rights. And so we talked a little bit, and I approached him about it. And he just had, it seems like everything to lose by doing anything with my project. Like, sure, man, I love it. I'm passionate about this stuff too. And just such a solid person, you know.
Wow.
And so he jumped in and did that, and he's got his own Bozo story that I think he's trying to shoot something with. And John C. Riley, you know, I've been out in LA for 25 years, and you know, I've had this company for 20 something years, and I did his kids' clown parties. You know, I did his 20 years ago. I did both of them, and I've maintained contact here and there, and I'd go see his shows. He's got a wonderful show now called Mr. Romantic. That's great, that I saw at the Largo here in California. And you know, he's passionate about it too. And he's like, yeah, man, I'll sit and talk to you. And it was before his house burned down in Altadena. So it's like,
oh, I didn't realize he lost his home.
Yeah, he lost his place. And he's got all these beautiful, he had all these beautiful clown photos. And so we had, like, you know, sitting in this room with all this clown art that he had. This is all gone. And it was such a bummer, you know. I can't even imagine the loss that he had gone through.
Of course.
And David Howard Thornton, you know, was that after the first Terrifier, one of our producers was like, hey, I think we should really get him. And at the time, I had kind of a line with Tim Curry, but I think Tim Curry, he had just done this doc that I was in called Pennywise, right? Was like a clown that talked during it. And I, you know, I just didn't know if it would be easy for him or if he'd want to. And then David Howard Thornton was like, okay, great. So, you know, I feel like it's important to get this sort of horror clowns personal view on it, you know, and it felt like it was such a unique discussion with him because, you know, as you're talking to him, you're like, oh, this guy's a clown, you know, he's a horror. I mean, you know, to a lot of clowns, he's the enemy, right? He's like, oh, you're doing this horror clown thing, but he has love for clowning, and he just like happens to be, you know, I really, it's a difficult position to put yourself in because, you know, I don't know. It's like, hey, do you want notoriety and you want to do this thing and you get to do what you love, and you know, but it could be bad for other clowns, and you know, it's tough to know what the right thing to do is. You know, I mean, he's the horror clown is the clown ambassador right now. I don't know if it's great that horror clown is, but that's the reality, and it's like at least the clown is still playing. You know,
that's true. The clown is still around for that reason. No, I get it. It. So there's all kinds of angles to look at, and I can't imagine these are going to be the only people talking in the film. You mentioned some of the clowns you mentioned earlier are going to be in the film.
Yeah, and it was very important to me to keep these sort of the interviews that I got. You know, right away you interview who you can, the other clowns that you know. So I had, you know, a good dozen interviews with my fellow bozos and clowns and everybody that I knew that I've Laffy Pants and Tina and people that worked in the circus and yeah, I wanted to talk to them. I've worked in the medical clown community, so I wanted to talk to some of those clowns. I talked to a rodeo clown, JJ Harrison. You know, I wanted to find out, you know, how they felt and what it was like right now being a clown. And you know, producers, I get it. Of course, they want to get the names in there because the names help, you know, they help get the visibility and get the clicks and stuff. But I got to a point with American Clown that it felt like for every name we wanted to get in, we had to lose kind of a rank and file. And I just thought, I'm not comfortable with that because then it's just celebrities, you know, and like it, you know,
then it gets a little pompous and off topic, and you
just lose the heart. You lose the heart,
exactly.
You know, and I wanted to be about working clowns.
So working on this since 2017, 18-ish, what was it then about now, here in 2025, that it's like, okay, now we're going to release this? Are you just now finally getting enough footage to fill a movie, or did you get a particular piece of footage? Or like, okay, this is what we were waiting on to complete this experience. What is it about now? Why is the film ready now?
Yeah, that's a great question. It just felt like time, you know. And then I kind of felt like there's a groundswell of you know, of kind of clowning goodwill that I just kind of feel in the air. And I'll be honest, I also think that there is this sort of an essence of, if you have a good idea, you know, and it feels solid and it feels, there's a good chance that somebody else has that same idea.
Yes, sir. And you better strike while that iron's hot.
You got to beat them. You got to beat them to it. So if you dilly-dally around and you're like, well, we're still, and it felt like I had been dilly-dallying, you know, so it felt like and it was, and we got to a point where it was about this time last year. Everyone is, okay, well, are we getting close? And I had my list, and I had most of the people done on my list. But I was like, I had this Bill Irwin, who was he's just for any young person, young clown / actor, he was the North Star as far as clowns were concerned. He worked in the Pickle Family Circus. I mean, he was in Popeye, played a variety of different characters. When smash him on his head, he's like, he's like, he was Mr. Wiggles on Sesame Street. Like, he's done everything, and he's a master clown. Like, he is legit. Like, if there's a clowning Hall of Fame, which that guy deserves it. Like, everything. And I just the nicest, most wonderful guy. And so I was able to, because of another friend that I had in here who was also in the class of 1997, Ambrose Martos. When I was going through who I wanted, he was like, and I said Bill Irwin. He's like, oh, I can put you in touch with Bill Irwin. I was like, are you serious?
Wow.
Like, I know Bill. Like, so he kind of hooked it up. And so when I made that trip to New York, and I got Bill Irwin, and I got Keith Nelson, who was basically the artistic director of the Bendel-Stiff Circus, I thought, okay, well, this is my list. This is my list that I had down. Of course, other names have crept up. You meet other clowns who are like, well, you should get so-and-so, and you should get so-and-so. But it's just, the closet got full, and there was no way. I mean, unless I'm doing a 6-part series, which is great too. And I'm into that. I love just keep talking to clowns, it just felt like we're at a place that I feel, at least for this first major chapter, that I feel okay. Because this is an ongoing story. It's not, it totally, it hasn't concluded, what's going on. I broke open the egg, and now we're kind of dealing with all the mess.
Well, now that you have all the goo together and ready to premiere again this Monday at the Chinese Theater, June 23rd in Hollywood, what are your, expectations? What are your hopes for this? What do you hope for this documentary to do for the American clown?
I hope it just helps put a clown foot forward, honestly. I don't have a lot of expectations. I typically don't, but it would be great to, clowns don't have a home, and they don't have a certification process, and people that are interested, they don't always have like, a way of finding out the info or the people to talk to. Or there's a kind of a famous term that ringling clowns always would call, they use a term for clowns that aren't trained under the sort of Barnum Bailey banner as yamas. So they call them yamas. And the reason that term is, or what that term means, is that when they would go to a place, or they'd go to a city, and they would be doing all the grunt work that clowns would have to do, there'd be somebody that'd come up to them and say like, yeah, I'm a clown too. So if they would say these guys are yamas, they're yamas. Yeah, I'm a clown too. So that was kind of, that was the sort of the uncertified sort of clown, that's kind of the kids party variety. I mean, me. Basically, that's I don't have any training. I have 4,000 kids parties, but I'm technically a yama. I'm a yama clown. That's what they would call me, a yama. And I have compassion for the other people that want to be clowns. And that want to be. I want to give them. Here's a doorway. Should you want to enter, this is as much information as I can glean from the other clowns of what it's like to be a professional clown, and and it took me a long time to call myself professional clown. It was when I was like, after 20 years of pulling in money, be like, well, I'm making money as a clown. And I'm a professional clown. I mean, this is how I'm a professional clown. I'm also a professional actor, but sometimes acting doesn't work out. And I've always been a professional clown. So I really wanted somebody in this movie. I'm hoping that it's a little touchstone that they can go to. They can remind themselves of kind of like, for the past 50 years where our origins came from. Because the movie really starts off as, for people that don't know about clowning, it's a primer for a lot of people. It talks about clown college, what they would do, what they would get into, some of the things that, people talks about our challenges that we're coming up with in the horror clown. So I would hope that it just adds to the conversation, that more experienced, smarter people than myself can keep carrying on this legacy, because I think it's something that that the dead can't speak for us, and so the living
Right.
have to continue this thing, and now we've lost this sort of, and maybe this is just we're the canary in the coal mine for a lot of other professions, but we've lost this sort of we're not training the next generation, right? They're not. We don't have the schooling for them. If they go to even a program, they're going to get the clowning from their teacher or whatever, but it's not always going to be professional. It's training them to do this. So I think there's got to be an element that we're keeping the conversation going, and I hope that's what American Clown does. Is it continues the conversation.
Wow, the clown is kind of like the Jedi, right? Being slowly disappearing. There's nowhere to get trained anymore. You have to find a Jedi to train you to be a Jedi, kind of a thing. That sounds stupid. I'm sorry. I couldn't help myself. Got to squeeze Star Wars in wherever I can.
Got me rock hard. You talking like that? That felt great.
Mission accomplished then. I want to remind everyone once again, premiering at the Chinese Hollywood Theater this Monday, June 23rd, part of Dances with Films film festival. I had never heard of this film festival. It sounds really cool.
They've been around for a long time, and they're really kind of, for the West Coast, there are a young filmmakers or not so young filmmakers, sort of like they're a great entry because they're very wonderful. I actually had a film that I was an actor in 1999, in the third year of Dances with Films. And I remember going to my first film festival I went to.
Wow.
So when I got into this one, I was like, well, that feels like that's kind of come full circle. That feels good, and they've grown exponentially since I was in it. So I'm super eager, and it's in Hollywood, and my friends can make it. And I'm going to the opening sort of salvo tonight after we get off this conversation. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited to be in Hollywood.
As you should be, man. I'm excited for you, and I've just met you. And I wish we could be there. I really do, because it sounds like it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. So congratulations to you, man, and all your success with not only being a clown, but being able to put this this documentary together. I can't wait.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Randy. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Really quick, where should people be getting tickets who are living in the area and can make it out Monday?
Sure. Dances with Films, American Clown. I can send you guys a link. I don't know if depending on where you can post it, but if you just go to Dances with Films documentary, American Clown, it's right there. And if you want to find that link, you can go to Instagram, American Clown Movie on Instagram, and there's a link up in our bio. So that might be the easiest way.
I will then put that link in the description to this video and audio episode. So that works out.
Awesome.
Guilford, this has been so much freaking fun. We have to get you back on sometime, though, because I've also been listening to your music. I listened to a Dose of Courage album over the past few days, and I love it. It has a bit of like a southern rock bluegrass feel to it.
Ooh.
Love it. It was great.
Oh, thanks so much.
I would love to pick your brain on that. I love talking music. I'm a musician myself, so that would be a lot of fun sometime to do. But
oh, I would love that.
I don't want to overshadow the American Clown movie. So
Let's do
again,
that.
people
That sounds
check
fun.
that out. Let's do this again, Guilford. And until then, man, thanks so much. All right.
Thanks, gents. I love you. Bye, guys.
Appreciate
See
it,
you,
man.
Thank you so much. All right, everyone. And once again, that was Guilford Adams. Randy, we finally got us a Ronald, son.
Yes, we did. And we got to get him back on because,
Yeah,
dude, there's so much we could talk to him about.
no doubt. He was one hell of a nice guy. Had such a great time talking with him. And I got far more excited talking clowns than I thought I would.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could probably pick up on that while we were recording. I got a little giddy. But yeah, strongly encourage everybody to go to 1, GuilfordAdams.com, 2, AmericanClownMovie.com, 3, LosAngelesClownCompany.com, 4, GingerKidProductions.com. That's who's putting this film out and has some other projects. They have a This Is Gwar movie coming out.
Ooh.
That I'm going to have to see too. And, check out some of Guilford's music, because like what I was saying at the end, that wasn't me just kissing ass. I love music, and I did check out these albums, and they are good. There have been times in the past, I will never point any fingers, where someone says, oh, I got an album out, and you hear it, and it's kind of like, ugh. This isn't one of those cases. This is some good music. So check that out on his website, guilfordadams.com. And also have the Dances with Film linked below, so you guys can get tickets to go to the premiere this Monday, June 23rd, if you want to go. But with all that being said, Randy, what do we have on the website, sir?
Go to cannedairpodcast.com, check out past episode, check out some of the celebs we've had on, and if you're interested in coming on the show, fill out the contact page. Plus, see all the amazing links that we've neglected to mention.
Links? What links?
Like the Patreon, the merch, the...
Oh, well, yeah, I was about to say that. Once again, don't forget to find us on our socials, on Instagram at canned_air, and on TikTok at Canned Air Podcast. And like Randy was just saying, a few different ways to support us. We have a merch page that's on our website where you can get t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, all that kind of stuff, stickers with our logo on it. Or you can go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/cannedairpod, where $5 a month gets you access to a 4+ year growing catalog. $5 a month gets you access to everything. There's a lot of stuff on there. A lot of history of our show. A lot of stuff we would never release on the to the normies. So let that be some incentive. $5 a month, people. Come on.
Can't beat that.
You can't get shit at McDonald's for $5 these days, right?
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
You like what I did there? Squeeze McDonald's in one more time.
Yep.
And what else are we forgetting? Evergreen Podcast Network, the podcast network we've been on for about 4 years now as well. Very proud to be a part of, on there with a lot of other great shows. So check them out, evergreenpodcast.com. Unless you have anything else, Randy, I think that's what we call an episode, son.
Yeah.
So I once again want to thank Guilford Adams for taking the time to chat with us today. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch and listen. Be excellent to each other.